Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Balmer Brown, and with me is my co-host tonight, and that would be Moen of the Moen Show. How we doing today?
Doing well.
Awesome.
Good.
Immaculate was going to be on tonight. I know I bumped that in the previews. He's come up with a little bit of a conflict, so we're going to bring him on a different night. He has a bowl idea that I really think has value. That we couldn't quite get to last night. So that's my fault. I apologize. And we'll hope to get him on soon so we can talk that through with us. Just know that what's going on with the Bulls right now is affecting everybody. And new ideas are coming from every quarter. And here on this show, we've had several. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that would be coming. I want to thank everybody for being on with us tonight. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the show or and follow us on Twitter. And then think about becoming a member of the channel. Let me play that video so you can see how to do that. 1 second.
Become a member of Big 12 Mafia by going to our homepage and hitting the join button located next to the subscribe button in the upper right corner. There are several membership levels to choose from. Become a member.
Sorry about that. Hit that twice. Besides becoming a member, make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. That helps quite a bit. And then turn on your notifications so you know when our shows are going to be coming up. So a few things that were going on today that I wanted to touch on. First of all, the idea that we were going to be running into bowls that weren't getting viewed is ridiculous. And I have more viewership numbers. Let me see if I can pull them up. The last viewership numbers that came around were crazy good. Wild, you shared those with me. Let me see if I can find them here real quick. Where in the heck did I put that link? Oh, I'll have to come to that at a different time. The numbers were ridiculous. 10 million was, I think, the top bowl attended number. And Moen, out of all the numbers that were for the games that happened over this last weekend, what are the ones that stood out to you the most?
Well, as bad as the Ohio State-Missouri game was, and it wasn't much of a game for 3 quarters, it did an incredible number. But I see a lot of people throwing schools out there that this school did that number, that school didn't. It shows viewership. You guys got to remember, too, is what date these fall on. A lot of these fall on dates where people don't have to work, holidays, things like that, where more people are readily available to view the games. So I know, and I don't want to take anything away from Iowa State. I love the Cyclones, but I saw a lot of people pumping up that Iowa State number. I remember, if I looked at it correctly, it was on a date that I was like, well, some of that has to be part of the date. Did you find that link from Front Office Sports?
Yeah, I'm going to it now. So
okay.
I'm just bringing it up. See if I can get up.
Yeah, I see. And Jan Holt brings this up in the chat. He was blown away by some of the ratings. Some of this, in like I was saying on Moen After Dark, even bad football is good.
Here it is.
Especially when you're starved for it. So
it really shows that there's value in these bowl games. Oh wait, that's the wrong week. Let's see.
No, you're going.
No, going the wrong way. I had it. Sorry about that.
Bowl season week 3.
There it is, right here.
Yeah. So look at this. Georgia, Florida State hit 10.39 million viewers. That was probably the least competitive bowl game out there. There was never any doubt that Georgia was winning that game, and it hit 10 million viewers. Missouri, Ohio State, close to 10 million. It was 3-0 through 3 quarters. Ole Miss, Penn State, that was Mississippi kind of controlled that one, but Kansas State, North Carolina State, here was one. This was on Thursday, 12/28 at 5:45. The Pop-Tarts Bowl. And I'm telling you, I think a lot of people tuned in for that edible Pop-Tart. I know I watched just for the Pop-Tart. I wanted to see how they were going to pull that off.
And didn't he go down into a box? Didn't they raise him up?
They put him into, well, they have a mascot. He went down in the toaster, and then this big Pop-Tart came out and they started eating it. But hey, it was a gimmick that got people to tune in. I mean, Arizona, Oklahoma, that was a great game. West Virginia, North Carolina, another great game. Memphis, Iowa State was the one I was talking about on Friday, 12/29. I think that one popped such a number just because it was on a Friday before the New Year's holiday.
I like to
But
look at the ones that don't get the great numbers just because
there's
I like to see
SMU.
the comparison. Yeah, SMU's kind of been the dog that we've used on this show for a while. They drew 1.5 million for the Fenway Bowl, which I believe was played in Fenway Park, the baseball stadium, which means their walls ran right up until the end lines. Kind
Right,
of
but look at the
scary
other team
football.
that's in there's Boston
Boston College
College.
brought that
So
number. But you're
yeah,
looking
Boston.
at an ACC competitor next year,
Yeah,
right?
that'd be a conference matchup next year.
Right. So I don't know. I mean UNLV Kansas 2.5 million, but again it's Kansas, right? They had a good year, so we just have to decide of these games which are the ones that are the most worthy of attention, and then which of those bowls are then going to be pulled up into the 12-team playoff next year. You would imagine the orange, the cotton, the peach are all going to be involved, but do you involve a Pop Tarts bowl for one of the early first
So
round games?
I don't think so. I don't think that one makes it. The first round games won't be bowls, by the way. They will not
Well,
be.
well, they
They'll
might
be
have names.
they'll be at the home stadiums of those
I
teams.
understand. I
So
understand that, but that it could be the Lavelle Edwards Stadium Pop Tarts Bowl. You could do that,
maybe,
right?
but I think they're just going to give them just regular. I think the bowls don't come into play until the second round. So you only really need let's see, 8. I think 8 total.
8. What are you
4
talking about? 8
plus
total what?
2 plus 1, 7 total bowls, I believe.
Next year or
Yeah,
in the fall? We talked about this last night. I thought it was
yeah.
11.
There's 11, but remember the first round games won't necessarily be bowl games.
But that doesn't mean they won't have. They could have we're talking just about the name.
Right, but I don't think that
So,
they're even getting assigned bowl names, but we'll
they
see.
could though. I'm saying it's not out of reason. If the Pop Tarts are willing to pay $10 million for the naming rights of the first round playoff game with the least seeding, you think they're going to turn that down?
Well, it depends on what kind of Pop-Tart they're bringing.
Okay.
It's
All right. Now I know what we're talking about. All right.
if it's the cinnamon sugar one, it's fine.
Okay. So
I
we're
want
both
that
saying
at
this. We're both
I
saying the
want that
same
at the
thing.
horseshoe.
We're both saying the same thing. That's all I'm saying. All right. So beside that, is there anything else that stands out about these bowls? What we've been talking about, what was on Greg's show earlier today, and what we talked about last night is the value of these bowls. Right? Articles are being written now. People are questioning the opt-outs for the players, and stuff like that. And so we need to decide. Their advertisers aren't going to go away. Not with a 3.8 million viewer rating, right? If the Mayo Bowl for almost 4 million viewers, which is almost that's almost a full, that's a 2.1 rating. I mean, that's bigger than everything except for an NFL playoff or regular
Yeah,
NFL game, right?
there's really nothing on during the holidays. Live sports gets views. Like I said, bad pizza is still pizza. Bad
Yeah.
football is still football. People are still
So,
going to tune in and watch it.
well, I think these numbers prove that will happen. So then the second question, and there's been many articles written about it today, but just between you and I, the second question is, what makes a good bowl? Is it just the team showing up? Because everybody
Uh,
knows what happened in what happened with the Orange Bowl with Georgia and Florida State.
well, some of it, unfortunately, is a storyline. A storyline makes a more compelling bowl. The Alabama Michigan game was made more compelling by the fact that Alabama was put in over Florida State.
Okay.
Um, Again, the same thing with the Texas versus Washington matchup. It was more compelling because Texas went in over an undefeated Florida State. Uh,
Right.
this week's bowl game is going to be very competitive and compelling because You've got current Big Ten team versus future Big Ten team.
Against additional storylines.
Right. There's other stories. Jim Harbaugh
right.
cheating. There's lots of storylines in there, but I mean,
exactly. Well, let's get one of our first super chats in here. Cleveland Rocks, $10. Thank you much, Cleveland Rocks, for the $10 super chat, and also thank you for being a member of the Big 12 Mafia family. He says, "Happy New Year." Went to the Pop-Tart Bowl game in Orlando. Both teams really played hard and wanted to win. It was a great game and a lot of fun. Avery Johnson is the real deal. Well, and we've talked about the Pop-Tart Bowl a little bit. I actually didn't watch the game, so I can't comment on that, but I do know Avery Johnson is a stud. I know that.
Yeah, I caught the last fourth quarter. I just wanted to see the Pop-Tart get eaten. I'll be honest with you. I was intrigued by how they were going to pull that off, and I was looking at the mascot that whole fourth quarter going, there's no way that's edible. And then they did the disappearing trick, and but yeah, it was a good game from what I saw. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I tuned in basically to see the Pop-Tart get eaten.
Well, it's always good to see something. Visuals, like the kids were watching. They got to see the Pop-Tart disappear. Okay, so let's get off that topic and let me get to our next one that I really wanted to talk about was no, we already talked attendance. Sorry. I wanted to get to shout outs and comments first. Blake Phillips was the first in today. Good to have you here, Blake. BR, it's always great to see you. He says, his comment is, anyone know where I can rent a Washington t-shirt for a week or so? Hey, just go buy one. Don't be cheap. I bought mine, so you should be able to go buy yours. It's a good fan base. Something you could cheer for all the time, BR. Glenn Lumens here from the Philippines. Good to have you here, Glenn. Casting for Chrome is in the house. He says, try Goodwill, BR. So there's a good place to try to find one. Or eBay, you can probably get one cheaper than off the rack. Let's see. Jason Ritchie. I believe Jason Ritchie, is he a returner? If not, welcome to the channel. Good to have you here. He says, hi, everyone. It's not official. K-State is looking at Matt Wells for quarterbacks coach and co-offensive coordinator. Matt Wells, do you know anything about that?
I'm not familiar with Matt Wells. I just know that K-State's former quarterback is taking a visit in Columbus this week.
Right. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Jason Ritchie, maybe somebody in the comments section can answer your question for you. I don't know myself. But being a K-State fan, you guys are set up to be successful next year. I know that team's going to be loaded. And yeah, you might lose your starting quarterback, but I believe you have one coming in that's going to be pretty good. Antoine Codes, good to have you here, Antoine. Looking forward to the show tonight. Can't wait to go back and watch the replay of the previous one. We did have a good show last night. We had some guests. We had a full panel, and we appreciate you being here and being a member. Thank you, Antoine.
It was packed.
Let's see. What's that?
It was packed last night.
It was. Yeah, it was. Charles Evan is in the house. Daniel Gygax, the guy who likes to razz me, is also here. OPD Don says he's number 15. I'm getting better. That's good to have you here, Opie. Jan Hulk, all the way from Slovenia. Good to have you here, Jan. We are an international channel here at Big 12 Mafia. Got fans all over the world. Let's see here. Kyle Visser is here. Hey, gents, what we talking about tonight? Well, we're going to talk some realignment, FSU ACC, and we're going to talk about articles that came out today on top of some videos I'm going to run that I picked off of Twitter today. Some about like the Alabama last play. I just want everybody to see a couple of those instances. That'll be fun to talk about. And then we're going to do more comments and suggestions from you guys. So send us comments. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We've got some time tonight to do that. Joey Z is in the house. Good to have you here. Craig Kirsch says, I will say the championship game won't beat the Alabama-Michigan game in ratings. I don't know that that's true. What do you think?
No, I think it will. Here's the problem, though. The Alabama-Michigan game started at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This championship game is going to start at like 8:20 p.m. And there's a lot of people who don't have the championship day off work. So you're probably right. The Alabama-Michigan game will beat it in the ratings, but I think you have to put that caveat in there that they're playing on different times. One was played during a holiday and one's not. So
I think it could be the most viewed ever. I think the idea that Washington, who is technically not in that super blue blood state like the schools that are normally in the top 10 outside of Texas A&M, which always sucks. I think that being an outlier is going to drive business. I think everybody wants to see Michigan get beat by Washington for many reasons. So I think this could be a 20 million plus game.
yeah, but you got to remember the Alabama-Michigan game had people rooting for both teams to lose. So both those teams have huge hater bases that tuned in.
I understand.
I don't know anybody that really hates Washington other than Oregon Duck fans.
There's nothing to hate about Washington.
Really, I
and,
mean,
and Oregon isn't really, yeah. Jared Jones is in the house. Says, "What up, players?" Jared, did you receive your rally towel for being a founder? If you're not, you need to DM me your address and I'll send it to you. I've been trying to get a hold of you, so send that to me on Twitter, and I will send that out and get that to you. And I thank you for being a member of the channel. Says, "What up, players? It's good to have you here." Rock Chalk 94 is here. Hey guys, good to see you. Let's see. We'll scroll down some more. Let's get to see anybody else. Nathan Campbell is in here. Charles M says SMU has numbers normally about the same as Boston College. So what you're saying there, Charles, and you're probably right. I don't know this, but I believe that could be easily split down the middle because I think Clemson does have about the same. That would be my opinion. Let's see here. Eugene says first round games aren't bowls, they are at home stadiums. Okay, let me say this again. We're not talking about the locations. We're talking about what the bowl game is, just the bowl name. So where's the Cotton Bowl played this year?
I believe it's played in AT&T Stadium.
It was played in AT&T Stadium. Where was it used to be played?
That's a good question.
It used to be played in the Cotton Bowl.
Right. Where's the Cotton Bowl?
It's an old stadium.
Right, but where's it actually located? The city.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is the locations are
okay,
they're naming rights.
I got you,
locations.
Brother.
Yeah,
I got you. I'm just asking what city the old Cotton Bowl was.
It was Dallas.
It was Dallas. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Anthony Palika. Let me get that right. Anthony Palika. Gator Bowl could be drug in. Yeah. Gator Bowl's one of the old ones. That's true. Eugene says 7 games or bowls.
Okay.
Yeah, there are the 4 that could have naming rights. That's true. Let's get to this. OPD on $25 super chat says if you hate Jim H, that would be Harbaugh, then you hope he wins the national championship so he's gone to the NFL to chase that ring that his brother has and be the only the 5th coach to do it. Quite possible.
He's leaving anyway. I think he's gone anyway.
I think yeah. Sorry. Say that again, Nolan.
He doesn't want to deal with the NCAA violations. He's gone anyway. I think Numskull brought up the possibility of the New England job, which I thought was a really good job if Belichick goes. But I think if the San Diego Chargers come calling and make him the richest head coach in NFL history, he's going to bite on it. Justin Herbert, you've got a strong defense to build around there. I think that's a no-brainer job.
I got some more people correcting me. Clint Moses says they could be, but they won't be Bomber. He's talking about the naming rights. Just call it first round. It's quite possible. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I was just saying it could happen. That's all I was saying. Charles M says I enjoyed a lot of the bowls this year, mostly on ESPN Plus and Hulu Plus, but it froze and crashed several times every game. I ran into some of those issues too. I almost didn't watch any bowl games, but there were a couple I watched online, and they did seem to have transmission issues.
I will tell you what, I promote YouTube a lot, but YouTube TV, the game thing is awesome, you guys. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Like on January 1st, I watched the Wisconsin game, the Iowa game, There was another game that was going on I think it was Liberty, Oregon was going on simultaneously, and I was able to watch all three on one screen. You can just highlight it. The audio will pop up. Yeah, so
let's see here. Get to some more. Stephen Ojai, Florida says 12-team playoff. First round on campus. Second round will be 4 of the New York Six Bowls. Semifinal will be 2 New York Six Bowls. So I guess maybe that was announced. I have not heard an official thing saying that it's going to be named anything in particular. So you guys all may be right. It's quite possible. Let's see here. Big Lubbock says, oh, sorry. I was going to get to a comment here from Big Lubbock, and Sergeant Pickles says, good evening, or evening all, go Dogs. And then right next to him, he says, the Big Lubbock says, Washington wins by 2 scores.
we
So
hope.
I think Washington is going to win this game by maybe 9 points.
I hope Washington wins, and because I hope Washington wins, I picked Michigan in my bowl thing.
I think that's hilarious. Jeff Fuller, send me a DM if you can. I had one question, follow up on your conversation you had on Greg's show tonight. I had a question that I thought you might be able to come on the show and clear up for me. If you have the time, let me know and I'll bring you on the show right now. I'll send you the link. Just send me a DM on Twitter and I'll get you on. It's good to see you though. Happy New Year. Boy, I don't do many of these smaller shows, so I don't get to so many comments. So as long as you're okay with these, going through these, I love doing this stuff.
Oh, go ahead.
Kenneth Evans says, Coach Prime showed us that ratings does not equal good. Well,
Yeah, that's true, but ratings equals money, which is what
yes,
everybody is chasing. So
right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's exactly right. Ryan Thomas says, Moen, I was at the Rose Bowl. I couldn't cheer for either team, but I am not sad. Alabama lost. Go Dogs.
yeah, I told the guys in chat that I was torn as well. I enjoy seeing the SEC lose, but I can't celebrate Michigan winning.
Sorry, I'm sending Immaculate a note. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Let's see. Jared Jones says, oh, he just disappeared. I got rid of that. Jared Jones had a comment. Let's look at this one. Cleveland Rock says, Jared Jones, you will love Will Howard. He is a great competitor and can run too. He still needs to clean up his interceptions a bit. Has that been confirmed? Is that a
He's
confirmed?
visiting. The visit is confirmed.
That's what I heard, was that he was visiting.
He's
Okay.
visiting. But
Okay.
there was strong smoke the last week that Will Howard, even before the bowl game, that Will Howard was the guy they were targeting.
It's very true. Sergeant Pickles talking to Kenneth Evans, who has been a little jaunty the last couple nights. I like Kenneth. He has great conversation, and I appreciate him being here. He's replying to him saying, I get it's the Big 12 Mafia, but it's a show for all fans. I could not. I should do a screenshot of this tweet and reuse it all the time, because the name is Big 12 Mafia, and we are definitely tilted towards the Big 12 and the Big 10 because of Moen and Immaculate. But we do cover all college football, all realignment, and all news. So we welcome everybody here. Don't get caught up in the name. We definitely do a lot of work, and we appreciate everybody being here. Didn't want that to go by without anybody seeing it.
Once
Daniel
realignment
Gygax
settles down, we're going to be the Big 72 Mafia.
There you go. That's right. We've already got that on Twitter. We already reserved that one. Daniel Gygax, another member, says it could go as CFP first round presented by X company. That's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe you drop the word bowl altogether. I don't know. But that is possible. Let's see here. Super chat from Maggie and the Knowles says, hi guys, love your channel. Go Knowles. We're here for you. We were cheering for the Knowles too. We wanted them to make it into the playoff, and it didn't happen. They got screwed, and we feel your pain. Believe me, as a BYU fan, I can definitely identify with being left out. There's no doubt about it. Antoine Codes, another one. By the way, I read our member comments first. I just want to make sure everybody knows how we do this, and then I go to general comments. Member comments are always with this special symbol that sits next to somebody's name, distinguishes them for me. I know that they're a paying member, and we encourage everybody to sign up and be a paying member of the channel. We would also like to invite you right now to subscribe and follow us both on Twitter, stay up to date on everything. He says the home playoff games won't be bowl games. In my opinion, it doesn't make sense. If, for example, if USC gets a home game, they are not going to call it the Rose Bowl game. Moen.
Well, USC doesn't play in the Rose Bowl. They play in the Coliseum. UCLA plays in the Rose Bowl. So, yeah, UCLA would not call it the Rose Bowl game. They wouldn't have the rights to do that.
Let's do this, because I was going to bring this up, and Pickles has done it for me. By the way, I'm not paying Pickles to do these prompts. They're just really they're in line with where my head's at at the moment. So I appreciate him bringing these up. Hey, Bomber, we would love to hear your take on Stephen A. Smith's Rose Bowl thing. I'm surprised the number of non-P12 big fans who say they don't care about it. Okay. First, I'll ask you, Moen, did you see his comments?
Yeah, but Stephen A. Ross, A is for asshole, guys. I don't take anything he says seriously. Neither should you. He says out he's no different than Colin Cowherd or any of these other talking heads on TV. They say outrageous things just to get people talking about them, tweeting about them, getting people to watch them. So I don't put any weight into anything Stephen A. Ross says, or Stephen A. Smith says. I don't put any weight into what Colin Cowherd says. I don't put any weight into what Jason Whitlock says. All these guys are charlatans that are out there just saying crazy things to get interaction, get clicks. And I want to remind you to leave a like and a comment down below if you like the streams.
There he is.
Hey, Immaculate.
We had some scheduling stuff there, Immaculate. I'm sorry about that. Do you want to comment on this? Because you're coming in at the best time right now.
Yeah, what am I coming in on here?
Stephen A. Smith's comments about the Rose Bowl. I haven't done mine yet. Moen gave a brief comment. Did you catch that on Twitter?
I saw a little bit about it. I didn't see his comment, and it's Stephen A. Smith, so I don't go out of my way to
Okay.
listen in.
That's what Moen said.
I did see actually a comment. I don't remember who it was. Actually, I don't want to say who it was. He's connected to Michigan, but he actually had a good idea. And I actually like the idea of UCLA playing in that stadium, SoFi Stadium, now as a Big Ten member. But then the Rose Bowl needs to stay at the Rose Bowl.
Right.
Like that's not SoFi. No. Nope. I'd rather see the Rose Bowl die. But UCLA playing a SoFi as a season thing kind of goes against everything I say about how, rent a stadium and all that. But UCLA does not get good numbers at the Rose Bowl. They're empty. People have even been showing me that since I've been making comments on Miami. And I just think that maybe it might actually draw more people to their games if they had them at SoFi. It's just LA. I think those people that want their creature comforts, and the Rose Bowl needs a lot of work. So I think the Rose Bowl at the Rose Bowl, but UCLA maybe could play at SoFi.
Okay, this is his comment, and I took a screenshot of it, but I can't find it. It was stupid anyway. It was one line. Basically, he suggests moving it to SoFi. He wants to walk away from Pasadena and move it to an airport ready, super nice, upgraded, all his ridiculous complaints, throwing out all the history and pageantry and tradition.
Yeah.
The Rose Bowl, I think it's universal. Everybody thinks the championship game should be there every year.
Yeah.
So
if it fills, it's great.
Yeah. And the idea that you would move college into a pro building just for the one event, knowing that college is all about passion and love and all those other things for a school. I mean, and this is what his comments basically saying. What does anybody think about that? I think it's an absolutely ridiculous idea.
It is. And wasn't it sparked because he was late getting there? And so he was just complaining about traffic, which was what made it ridiculous. Like, do better. Like, I'm sorry, it's LA. Traffic's horrible. Everyone else had to figure it out. So can you.
Yeah.
But even as somebody is saying in chat, and literally that's their name, I'm not just saying it's somebody, but somebody in chat is saying that UCLA has 40% attendance. SoFi would be a ghost town. He might be right. They might be right. I don't know if it's a great idea. I just know UCLA does not pull very well, and
Yeah.
maybe stadium does not matter. I don't know. It's just hopefully they can get that figured out when they're in the Big Ten.
Yeah, maybe with the opponents that are coming into play at UCLA, it'll
Yep.
improve some of that attendance.
Try it out at the Rose Bowl for a while and see how that goes.
I think it'll go awesome.
I hope so.
USC and UCLA, well, not UCLA, but USC's played many championship games there. And I don't think it's anyways. You can look, and these guys already said it about Stephen A. Smith. We're a commentary show. You're here to hear our commentary, and hopefully we're a little entertaining. This stuff, it's tough to get it from a Stephen A. Smith. I don't respect him at all. He said some things in the last 2 years about things that I care about. I'm not going to say what they are. That they were personal attacks against things that go to the core of my being, and he was able to do that because he felt like he had the universal right to say whatever he wants. And while he might be protected by the law, that doesn't make what he's saying is as good or right. And so that's where my judgment comes from. The guy's an idiot, and he shouldn't be the number one brand on ESPN daytime. It's ridiculous. So that's my
kind of funny. I don't like his on-air personality very much, but when you catch him on like these little things he does on the side, he's much more low-key and like kind of reserved and actually better off. But I think that's just like a personality that he feels the need to put out there for his shows. That's his brand.
Right.
And that gets very old very quickly.
Agreed. We got a new member, Mike Smith. Good to have you here, Mike Smith. Thank you very much for joining.
That was the first thing I saw when it came in. I was like, oh, crap. Mike joined us.
I don't want you to think I'm going to leave it up so everybody sees it, Mike. I apologize. We were in the middle of something when it came up. But we really appreciate your loyalty. You've been a great fan for a long time, and I really want to thank you. I also want to encourage people. There is a gift box down next to the comment section. You can gift memberships to our channel as well. So if you're feeling like you have a little extra money and you want to share the show with other people so they can see a little bit more of what we're doing, feel free to do gift memberships too. We encourage everybody to do that. They're always fun and they make you feel good. And there's some really cheap options too. It doesn't cost a ton of money. Anyways, so we're just going through comments. We're not to the bowl idea yet.
Oh, good.
Immaculate. But let's just do a few more of these, and then I want to we're gonna discuss fixing the bowls, and I want to do that next. So let me go to a few other comments here. Let's see. Kenneth Evans says, except for the so-called Big 12 Mafia, which loves Washington and the Big 10 for some reason. Do I love the Big 10, guys?
I think you're slowly going to get there.
Right now, do I love the Big 10?
No, he does not at all.
Okay. And Mike Evans, or Kenneth Evans, sorry, has done this now for 3 days. He's been on me about this UW thing. And I don't know what the fascination is with me.
I think it's just because you like UW. He assumes you like the Big 10. It doesn't work that way in all conferences.
I don't run away from comments, so I'm just saying up front, I'm not falling in love with the Big 10 anytime soon.
We like Ken. Ken likes to test people out.
I was okay with them in the Pac-12. Pac-10, sorry. When it was Pac-12, it was stupid. I didn't like them anymore. All right, let's see here. We'll get to some more comments. Daniel Gygax says it could go as a CFP first round presented by X company. We talked about that a little bit. What do you think about this idea of branding the first round games, Immaculate?
Ooh, this is where I get to probably go against the grain here a little bit. I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing going on with like the Cheez-It and the Pop-Tart Bowl. Now, it makes a lot of sense business-wise. They got some great marketing out of it, and it could help. But I just would like to see them get to a point where they don't have to be, for lack of a better term, so cheesy about it. So I do like just having straight brand names presented on there, even though it's gonna take some getting used to. If that means we don't have to make a spectacle of everything in order to get people to watch, then I think that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little old-fashioned about that, and that's fine. If most people disagree, then that's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, I think that you're going to have to rely upon sponsorship. That's kind of the general rule. I mean, look at all the stadiums getting named, and I mean, it's probably the way we're going.
Okay, I'm going to send Jeff Fuller an invite. He is calling in from the South Island of New Zealand. So he's watching us, and it's tomorrow where he's at, and he wants to join the show. So I'm going to bring him on for a few minutes before we get to our bowl discussion. I just wanted to follow up with a couple questions. So, Jeff, I sent that to you. I think I have 2 questions for you, so you don't have to be on for very long. But I heard your interview or your talk with Greg Flugar and wanted to follow up on that for a little bit. Let's get to a few more comments here. Actually, while we're waiting for that, let me run a video.
I saw one
So
from Jeff Fuller said something to you there.
He said lots of stuff.
He says I've got a good signal now for information if you want me to ask that.
Oh yeah,
question.
no, I sent him the link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I saw that, so I thought I'd mention it to you.
No problem. Thank you. All right, I'm going to run this video so everybody can see it. This is the Washington play at the end of the game against Texas. And if anybody doesn't think this is a major league play on defense, I don't know. You don't know football, okay? So everybody knows the situation. Texas has 1 play to get a touchdown. Washington has to stop them. There's no middle ground. This is the ball game. Tell me how elite this is, and I'm going to make this full screen. Here we go. That is pro ball right there. Did you guys see that slow motion? What'd you think about that play?
Oh yeah, I watched that live. That was probably one of the most emphatic endings to a game. Usually when you see a big ending in a game, it's a catch and, everyone celebrates it. This to me was, get that ball out of here, but at the same time to the entire team, like, get out of here. It was to see a player do something like that so emphatically and so dominatingly. To me, that's one of those plays that will define the season.
It could be a season defining. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could.
You'll see that replayed for years.
Yep, I agree with you. Let's try this one. This is another play from one of the playoff games. Let me get out of this one here. I'm going to have to find out how to turn that into a MPEG or something, because that defensive play is Richard Sherman on steroids. Okay, now we're going to jump to the Alabama game. Okay, I'm going to make this big so everybody can see it. And we'll share screen again. Here we go. So let's watch this. This is the defensive line, the last play of the game in overtime. Look how many Michigan helmets are here. What is that, 8? And they had 5 people blocking. Well, plus a running back. Watch how quickly this devolves. I'm going to back it up here. This is the last play of the game, guys.
I think that center
sorry. No, this isn't the last play. This is the play that they went down and scored. I apologize. I have the Alabama last play as well. So let's go with this one. This is on the drive where they needed to get a first down to win the game. Now, is there any – you have 11 players on 5. Is there any way you don't get that first down?
Some offenses, maybe. Michigan, no.
It's just crazy to me. And if you see that as the front, why wouldn't you just put all your guys in the box?
I'm guessing they never had seen that before. Like,
okay,
maybe
so explain to Washington fans how they're going to stop this to win the game.
I don't know. And like I said, this is the battle that I think decides the game. It's Michigan's offensive line versus Washington's defensive line. We've heard a lot about Washington's offensive line, but they are going to have to make some stops to Michigan running. Otherwise, it's going to be more difficult for them to get in a groove offensively because they'll just grind out this game. So, yeah, I don't know. Just be prepared. I mean, they're probably going to run 75% of the time if they can.
How about you, Moen?
Yeah, I don't know. Washington struggles against the run, but I don't know if they can make it into a shootout. That's their best chance. They need
Make
to
it a
score
track
points.
meet.
Yeah, they need to score points fast and often. If they can get up 2 scores and force J.J. McCarthy to throw the ball, I think they've got a good shot.
And I trust you guys in your analysis about the Big Ten. I obviously have been watching football my whole life, probably about since I was 3. College football was a big part of my raising up, so I know a lot about it. But Big Ten football is just different. I think you can say the thing for SEC are just different. And that's a big deal. Holy cow, we're getting gifts left and right. Let's get some bells and whistles there.
Damn.
Moen, let's go. Let's see. We got Summit Hawk. 5 new memberships, and then we have given out 5 new memberships. So 10 memberships out there for new viewers. All you have to do is click that gift button at the top, and you'll become a member. And we hope you stick around for a long time. The gifting is a nice way to give back to people, and it lets people know that what you put your time into is really important. So, boy, those are so important. Thank you so much, Summit Hawk. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yep,
All right.
and make sure you thank Summit Hawk if you got a membership from him.
Absolutely. Please let him know. All right. Jeff Fuller is right there. And where are you now, Jeff?
I am on a ferry going from the South Island to the North Island in New Zealand. We're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary and just here enjoying the time here in the summer, January
right.
summer.
Everything's different, right? So what's the temperature? Tell us that.
68 degrees, but it feels cooler than that. It's pretty stiff wind up here on the top deck of this ferry.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you can see.
No, it's gorgeous there.
Well, I don't know how
It
your
is.
wife is
It's
letting
beautiful.
you watch the internet and watch YouTube shows. And
Hey, we've had 5 days together already and got 5 more coming. So we're good. Yeah.
She was like, please go ahead, call in.
Yeah, I think we're seeing each other a lot more now than we do at home between
Congratulations,
work and
though, man.
kid duties. Thank you.
Yeah, very much.
Really enjoying
Congratulations. And thanks for being here, Jeff. We really appreciate it. So
yeah,
all the data dives, one thing that you brought up with Greg that really surprised me, and then I read a later tweet that you put out about it, is this idea that Florida State, using all the metrics and everything you can measure that's possible, Florida State was like the 6th or 7th team that could have been possibly in a playoff. Can you explain that to people in a simple way? I know you have all these extrapolations and numbers and stuff, but in a common sense way, which is what we do here because we're kind of stupid. Can you tell everybody why that really is, in your opinion?
sure. So I hope you can hear me. It's getting a little windier, but the Collie composite matrix takes up to 100. It's 90 to 100 different computer rankings. So all just sort of metrics, analytics. Some of them analyze recruiting, but most of them are just on player performance, your score, your opponents, all that. And essentially, he takes all the different ranking systems and gives you writes the rank of each team in each system, and then averages those out. And the top 4 conference champions were number 1, Michigan, number 2, Washington, number 3, Texas. Number 4 was actually Ohio State, but they weren't a conference champion. So number 5 was the next conference champion, and that was Alabama. Number 6 was Georgia. Number 7 was Florida State. And this isn't even taking into account Travis's injury. This is just the computers. This isn't human emotion. This is just the computers themselves looking at all the different programs and how they performed on the field, their margin of victory, their competition. And even at 13-0, the average computer ranking system, over 94 different ranking systems, had Florida State number 7. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's just sort of what the data and the metrics bear out. And I think we saw in the championship games we had very evenly matched teams, and I'm not so sure we would have seen that from Florida State.
So, in your opinion, again, this is just your opinion. I want to clarify that nobody's making any statements here that aren't their own. The data proved out that they were the 6th or 7th team. Didn't the data have Georgia pretty high though?
It had them 7th, so they were before they lost Alabama. Georgia was 4th, which again that sort of fit with what a lot of people were saying about the SEC this year. Usually dominant, but even Georgia as undefeated in that average ranking system, they weren't as high. They weren't blowing people out as much. The SEC didn't do as good in out of conference play, and so those things factor into these computer rankings. And so that's I've looked at these Massey composite rankings, and they're really good for men's basketball as well. I just like them because it takes all the biases out of sort of the human emotion, and there's so many different systems that you sort of mitigate the weird outliers, and you get these very consistent averages. So that's exactly what the committee ended up using, are those top 4 conference champions, and they seeded them in order. I'm not saying that's what the committee is doing, is just looking at this average, but if you look back through the archives on Massey's site, it's pretty consistent that he gets the top 4 out of the top 5 teams pretty much every year by using this system. So I think it's very effective.
So is this an improved BCS?
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of having some human component in it, or factoring in the polls some way. Part of me likes how the BCS did it partly, but again, part of me hated that as well as a BYU fan, because in the non-power conferences, you could go undefeated 2 years in a row, and the BCS computer systems that so favored, they chose specific computer ranking systems. I think it was 6 or 8 different systems, and a lot of those, most of those wouldn't factor in margin of victory. It was almost all based on strength of schedule. So I just remember even before that too, BYU in 2001 was 12-0. It was sort of like what Florida State went through, although not on as big a stage, but 12-0. And Luke Staley, our Doak Walker award-winning running back.
Bring it up. Stop. Those are bad memories for me. I don't want to talk about it anymore, Jeff. Let's not talk about BYU getting screwed.
He broke his leg, and then BYU was informed, you're released from consideration from the Bowl Alliance. No chance at a national championship. And then BYU crashed and burned after that as well. And people say, see, they weren't deserving. But it changes the motivation. I give Florida State some grace there for not performing perfectly. I'm not impressed with the opting out. BYU, at least players showed up, and I just don't think they were motivated.
Mo and Immaculate, you guys have a question for Jeff before we let him go?
Yeah. There's one question real quick from chat. Does that take into account that Florida State played 11 P5 schools and the other ones did not?
Oh, that's a good question.
Absolutely. I mean, the computer systems, they rank, if you look at strength of schedule, and it's, this happens a lot. You put some great teams on your out of conference schedule, but then with conferences having imbalanced schedules, you can't play everyone in your conference. Sometimes you end up playing the dogs of your conference. And so your strength of schedule sort of gets hurt that way. And it's not of your own sort of desire or design or making. And that's going to be a big thing going forward, because we're going to have very imbalanced schedules within conferences. There are some teams like in the Big 12 this year with 14 teams. There were some teams that had very hard schedules and other ones that ended up with easier schedules. And that's just based on which teams did better. And, it's going to be interesting how they factor that in, is an ACC champion that ends up playing much of the harder teams within the ACC better than a Big Ten champion that, ends up playing more weaker teams. Say they had Oregon on the schedule, but Oregon goes, 8-4 or something.
I think in my opinion, the computer rankings, you guys might disagree, but I think if everybody agreed, most people agreed with at least what the theorem is to ask the question, who should be in the playoff, and those rules are agreed to by everyone, then at least you would know what you needed to do, what you needed to improve. One thing that BYU's never been good with, even with Lavelle, is when they have their foot on the throat of somebody, just ripping their heart out. Georgia doesn't have that problem. So strength of schedule include margin of victory. It changes how all these teams play.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And really where it's going to come into play is how conferences choose their two best teams for their conference championships. There is going to be a reserve spot for every conference, the top 4 conference champions plus
Right.
the top G5. So really where it's going to come into play is how do conferences, is a 10-2 Ohio State that played a crazy hard schedule, are they going to, be chosen over 11-1 say Oregon, who ended up playing some weaker teams. Say that those were the ones who are going to match up against 12-0 Michigan or something. Who
Right.
choosing between those two teams and who had the easier schedules? That's where it's really going to matter, because
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, we're talking about teams, 9, 10, and 11 getting the last, at large spots,
Right.
looking at metrics and such.
Well, hopefully it goes to
Yep.
16.
Yeah.
Immaculate, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, I know you're a big numbers guy, and you make a lot of sense of all of this, in which some of us would look at it and go, "Huh." But wouldn't you say that the most important part of these type of systems is what you actually use as your inputs?
Sure.
With like you were alluding to, the strength of schedule. I've never been a fan of that because it comes down to what really matters in the strength of schedule comparison is who's ranked what and who ranked them. If one conference gets a leg up in the rankings, you almost can't succumb that. And I think we saw that happen with the BCS. It was the 2012, and then 2014 we got a new system. So wouldn't be against having some type of computer system come in, but how do we do that to where all these disparate groups around the country with different beliefs in what we should do and say and judge by, how do we actually come up with one? I don't think it's possible. I would love it if we could truly do it. I guess that's why I'm a fan more of let's just get back to on the field performance and what happens. And like you're saying, how conference champions get picked is going to be important going forward. And I'm not sure. I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers, but I just don't see how we could come up with one system, a computerized system that everyone is kind of going to agree on.
There's gonna be controversy, and that's where the real battles are going to be fought. Is who's included, what's is margin of victory important, is your strength of schedule is all those things are important, but are we going to incentivize people to just blow teams out when it's not always great sportsmanship? And you're exactly right. It's the GIGO principle: garbage in equals garbage out.
There
Any
you go.
computer
Nice.
ranking system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there.
You're gonna. Yep. So it's really important to get the
Real quick, if I can,
right.
What do you think about with your idea at looking at this and how we figured this out? I think one of the biggest problems going forward is going to be figuring out number 8 and number 9, because number 8's getting a home field advantage in that game. How do we?
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to become a fight that maybe people aren't seeing yet. But how would you figure that out if you're trying to do this? Because that's going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I exactly. I don't know if for like the NCAA seeding in the basketball tournament, they look at things like location. Which is it more advantageous to play do you go down a seed to play a possibly little tougher opponent, but it's right close to your home, or do you need to play on different days of the week? There's a lot of things that the NCAA committee for seeding the basketball tournament, they factor in those things. But with a much smaller field, I don't think anyone's gonna want to drop from because if you're the 4 seed, you're playing probably the G5 champion. Excuse me, if you're the 5 seed, you're probably playing the G5 champion, the number 12 seed.
Yep.
Between 5 and 6, that's a big difference,
True.
possibly.
Yep. Good point on that as well.
Yeah. So those seedings are still going to be controversial. I don't think we'll have the massive backlash like we've had with some of the smaller BCS 2-team or 4-team playoff, because you're less likely to leave out a team that that could challenge for the national championship. When
Well,
we're
but
talking
let me
about
throw
teams
something in there, Jeff. I think there's
9, 10,
opportunities on
11.
the back. I think there's opportunities on the backside of that. I think you could say you could have the last 4, 10, 11, 12, sorry, back to 12. So
9,
it,
9, 10,
from 9
11,
yeah,
and then
they actually have to
the
play
last
like a
at-large
play-in
spots.
game against an additional 4.
Oh, okay.
So
Sure, and
so
then we're
they're
talking
playing
about
for the
like a
right to get
16
to that
team.
second round. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I would love a 16 team. I think that's the ideal number. I know logistically it's a little tougher, and it maybe would water down the TV product of the first round. But you know, playing in to get to I think adding another week by play-in games to get to the second round, probably logistically would be difficult. You'd be
Okay.
the teams would have 2 or 3 weeks off, essentially waiting for their, the top
Right.
4 seeds would have 3 weeks off, and then you're, out of the classroom longer. You're, all those things that they've used before to say, hey, we can't have a playoff.
Yeah, that
So
those
16 makes sense to me, but not a play-in
right.
to get to the 12, because that's an
Okay.
extra week to accomplish that, and then injuries build up and et cetera.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on. Again, congratulations on your on your wedding 25 years ago, and
Yeah.
tell your wife thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and love the show, and keep it up, guys.
All right,
Good to see
we'll
you
see you
again,
later.
Jeff. Have fun.
All right, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I just want to get this out. VC Knoll was in the house listening to Jeff the whole time. Obviously, VC Knoll is Vince, our friend Vince, and he's laughing. I left that comment up the whole time Jeff was talking, specifically because we do want to let everybody know we're not necessarily taking opinions on some of these things we're talking about, but we bring on people that are opinion makers and we respect them. So I really appreciate Jeff being here with us today, and I hope he has a good and safe trip with his wife. That ha hit the spot there, Vince. I appreciate that. I wanted to get to one more video, and then we're going to jump to our next topic, which is going to be how to fix the Bulls. And this is going to be round 1 of a mini round conversation, but we want to involve you. Throughout this next conversation, we want everybody to be a participant. So put your comments in there live, and me and Moen will try to grab them while Immaculate's describing what we're talking about here. But let me get one more video in. This is the one I really meant to show with Alabama, Michigan. So this is the last play of the game, right? And they have these spy cameras that fly all over these stadiums. And this one was perfect to see how badly Alabama blocked this last play. So I'm just going to run this in real time. You can see what the limitations to the quarterback that Alabama had. That's it. The best play they had to get 2 yards was run the quarterback straight up the middle. And look where Michigan's guys all are. Their entire team's in the middle.
And they had a good wall set up for him there, but the guy you'll see right there in the middle, that one Michigan player, I do believe he was the end, just blows up this whole thing. So to be honest, they actually had this. It's just 74 needed to kind of cut left. If you notice,
Alabama puts out all-American linemen every year.
Mm-hmm.
So
just
it's not like they don't
failed.
have talent.
If 74 would have did his job, that's probably a touchdown.
What did you think about this, Moen?
Yeah, I think 74 you brought up too, but 77, if you actually watch him shift here, he shifts to the outside and picks up nobody.
Yes.
He should have recognized that right there and jumped in.
Yep, 74 was supposed to be the lead block. Instead, he blocked air.
Yeah, their line was, plus the snap to the quarterback was low. So
yeah.
So this is where the argument, and we'll come back to Florida State because I still think Florida State got screwed. Isn't this an argument to say, well, they were excluded because their quarterback was hurt? That guy, I can't remember his name even. The freshman quarterback for Alabama, he wasn't very good either. He's a good athlete, but didn't have any long passes. Wasn't really effective down the field. If your argument's the quarterback.
You talking about Milroe or someone else who came in?
I think he's talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm not sure what year he is. Yeah, I remember. I mean, they were basically making do without a star quarterback this year. I mean, at
Right.
one point in the season, they even pulled him to try someone else. So
Yes.
I think that he's going to probably make considerable strides till next year. But kind of seemed like maybe they weren't quite sure going into the season who their guy was. So we'll see how it
But
goes.
the argument with Florida State is they didn't get to play because their quarterback was out. So
Yeah.
if you see this play, how do you counteract that? And I'm not saying you
I don't know.
feel that.
Yeah,
I know
I'd say
you
the
don't. I'm
the
talking about
reality is that Alabama had the aggregate number one position for ratings over the entire year, and I mean, people say that's cynical. People say it's conspiracy theory, whatever. I consider it to be business reality. To think that ESPN never had any word get into the folks and say that their number one job at the CFP is to make money and distribute it to the conferences.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if ACC even was part of that too. But no, just in terms of what they should have done, no, I think Florida State should have been in regardless. It's not a one-man team. The rest of the team put in on it too. So, but nonetheless, it was a good game, and the 4-team series is over.
Right. Right.
So
this won't happen again.
yeah, and
happens
people are
again.
going to be fighting over it and talking about it till then, and I get it. I do get it. But to me, I'm kind of past it. To me, Florida State has made this a bigger deal than it was because it helps in their pursuit to get out of the ACC.
Well, and we're going to move to that next. So Kenneth Evans, he reminds me it's Milroe is a redshirt sophomore. So I thought he was a redshirt freshman. I apologize. I got that wrong. And then somebody who I'm not sure who somebody is, but he said they say, please no more FSU. I can be done with FSU. Tomorrow or Friday, however, I will be having Jan Knoll and maybe VC Knoll both on the show, and we're going to talk Florida State and realignment a bit. So, let's see here. That's just a hint. I might tip a little bit more later in the show, but let's get on to this bowl idea that we've been talking about. So I'm going to bring up a map of the United States. If everybody doesn't know what the map looks like, maybe you need to do some geography. I'm going to use, if you don't mind, I'm going to use the blue one that Moen put together. Are you okay with that one? Immaculate?
Whatever you got.
Okay. Let's bring up this one. Oops. Wrong button. Sorry, I opened it in the wrong window. I apologize. Let's see. There we go. So what we're actually, I'll go to this one. Okay. I'm going to bring it up full screen. Hopefully you can see it. But this basically shows all the locations of the bowls and the bowl system that was for, I believe this fall, right? Immaculate, isn't that right?
I'm not sure. I was just trying to find us a map that had locations of bowls just to kind of get an idea on this. I actually think that if they're going to do what I'm about to talk about, they may actually have to create a couple more bowls somewhere else, and some of these might drop off. But it's just to get an idea, geographically speaking, and that'll be made more evident a little bit later.
Okay.
You want me to
go ahead.
continue?
I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I don't know if you want me to continue or lead into this, or where you want to start.
No, I'm letting you go. It's your thing. Let's go.
Okay, so my thoughts, just to preface this first off, is I know there's a debate right now going on, and a lot of people are involved, which is why I wanted to go into this. And that's that the bowls are dying. And you could think either way on that. To me, when I say I think that they're dying, I'm saying it in the same regard of like how a tree dies. Like this isn't something just keeling over and dying in front of you. It's a long process that plays out. Like when we see stats and numbers, the effect from that isn't going to be felt for a year or two or three. When we look at some of the bowls this year with the opt-outs and that system, while there was great viewership, no doubt, I mean, can't debate against it. The effects of what we see in terms of how people were so turned off by not just the Florida State game, but quite a few where people weren't there or whatever. That's going to be a problem in the future. Just next year, you're going to take the top end of that, of the schools that were making some of the good bowl games or were having the problems. They're all going to be part of the playoffs. So you're going to have to find a way in taking teams that actually matter a little bit less and filling those time slots. What I would like to do is take groups of bowls that are in certain locations. Like say, you could take the Belk Bowl the Camellia Bowl, and the Music City Bowl, and a 3-bowl triad there with a 4-team mini tournament with, money prizes, things for the winning teams at the end, because you're going to have to get something to these guys for them to want to play. Now, that's not every team, but certain ones. And so by having like a mini tournament, because people want a tournament, they want like a 16-team tournament of the other schools. And that's just kind of cutting down too many schools out of the process. You're probably not going to even get votes for that. So
Can I drop a comment in here really quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Brandon Unruh put a comment in here, I think, that has something to do with how we organize this stuff. He says, with a 12-team playoff, do you think the 8 to 12 seed has a chance to win it all? When we're talking about these bowls right here, do any of these involve the playoff bowls?
No. Playoff bowls, the way that's going in the future, the way it's been is they were doing every other year. And so in their off year, they were relying on their old bowl contracts with certain conferences. That's over.
Okay.
All of the bowls that are involved with this are every single year. Okay. So we're losing a lot of the most popular bowls that were run the best, had the best bowl committees that were putting it together. And some of these others are going to have to carry the weight. So kind of the idea is maybe to have them working together. Now, they don't all have to be geographic, but say I like watching, these games that have teams not playing teams they normally would. But if you had, say, a team from the Sun Belt in it, and you had a team from the AAC, a team from the CUSA, and maybe one from the AAC, you could have yourself an interesting little mini tournament with some type of benefit at the end. And it's just kind of a hybrid of where we are now and the way that people seem to gravitate towards tournaments. Just kind of, these would basically be all done in the mold of what we have currently in the CFP.
So let's do an example.
Yeah.
I made the picture bigger. I hope you can see that. The Quick Lane Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl, and the Military Bowl are in a good circle, right? And you're talking about 3 bowl games. How would it actually work for those? How do they work together, those 3 bowl games?
Well, if we want to use those as an example, say you have one team from the MAC, maybe take a team from the ACC up in the north, like Boston College.
Okay.
Then another team from like CUSA that you have up there. You think the Army, throw an Army in there since you got the Military Bowl. And then just like a Temple or something. Like just try to come up with like 4 teams from the different conferences are coming into here. And so that's going to bring in all of your fan bases from each of those conferences, because there is a certain element of fandom for a school that you follow your conference to see how well they do in these other bowls. So you're drawing upon your widest base of viewership in order to make something which is really just an exhibition have more meaning to more people. So it would be 4 teams coming in and just having a mini tournament, and that's going to require a certain group of bowls to work together, because the final game is worth more. So no bowl is going to want to be the secondary game all the time unless you have some type of committee or something coming in and valuing them. So it's just
a semifinal and a final is what you're describing, right?
Yep. Basically just your tournament. Yep. And so you'd have semifinal and then a final, and I would have like prizes, money, something like if say your MVP wins, you might have a sports car up on a stand that they get to get in and for winning that. Something just to kind of make it exciting, because that's the type of stuff that gets shown on social media, it gets shown off, gets carried over. And that to me is how you get younger folks kind of interested in this, right? If we're going to have, we could do something like that, or we can continue to allow companies to basically kind of make a mockery of things. And if we're really wanting to get things into players' hands to make it worth it to them so they stick around, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't mind cars or clothing or things that they can show off. These are, you can't just stick a pile of cash in front of them and have the cameras go off. So to me, it's about making it a spectacle, but in a way that really spotlights the game, the players, and then making it worthwhile for them to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question to the people watching right now. If you have questions about this idea, please put them in the comment section. I'm going to bring those up, and we can answer them in line. This is an idea that Mackle's been playing around with for a little bit, still working on it.
Mhm.
So your ideas and suggestions really would come in handy. That's kind of what we're doing tonight. Just for a few minutes, we're laying the groundwork, generating the conversation that really matters, because these bowl games are dying.
Yeah, and you could even and they don't all necessarily have to be together. Like if you're coming in and you're going to have a Big 10, SEC, Big 12, and a CCC team come in, it doesn't have to necessarily be real localized. The reason why I like the localized ideas is for those smaller teams, so your fans don't have to travel as far to go watch the games. You see these in these stands, and some of these games they're half dead. I mean, if it was all kind of locally relevant teams in some of these, I think
Right.
they're gonna have better ticket purchasing. And then, if people stop watching as much, it won't hurt as much because they can actually fall back on ticket sales to support these in the way they used to. Because the moment those numbers start to fall off because say, too many kids are opting out or whatever, these networks are going to start dropping bowls left and right. So
Here's a
what do you got?
question from BR. Or a statement. He says, if the players are getting paid, they should sign contracts and be required to play. Problem solved. That's one idea that's being discussed. What do you two guys believe about that?
What you got, Moen?
I think they should be paid regardless. I've been pitching for a long time. They should be conference employees and contractually obligated to play in every game they're healthy for.
Immaculate?
I mean, NIL, I'm kind of surprised that's not already the case. But the problem is who's going to go first in demanding that?
Right.
And whoever does, players are probably less likely to sign on and do that. So I think that probably comes about when the athletic departments take this back, which seems to be coming. It's part of the whole battle over the NCAA and NLRB and such like that. Is much of that operation is going to move back into the ADs.
Here's a question for you, Immaculate, from Sergeant Pickles. He says, how would you address fan travel or hotel concerns playing back-to-back bowls?
Same way that we do. But also at the same time, if it's local, it helps out with that. Secondly, it doesn't necessarily have to be back-to-back games. You could, we have bowls. I think they go over like a 3 to 4 week period. But it's a fair question, and I don't know if that would hurt the end one. But I do believe that if you have some of these for the smaller teams locally, I think it's they go to back-to-back games during the season, so that wouldn't be a problem.
Is the idea to generate more momentum, more energy, if you're playing for something, right? If nothing else, you're playing to win this little mini tournament. That would be the idea, is to draw more attention and to generate more income for the advertisers, right?
Yeah, like if you're a mainline advertiser, and just for lack of better thing to say, say it's a watchmaker. So every player on the winning team gets one, and they bring it out to them. They're up on stage and they're showing it off. These guys like to show things off these days and do that. I think that's a win for everyone involved. And if you're kids and you're going to get prizes, things for you're getting paid still. It might be stuff, it might be whatever, but that's something to actually play for. And I answered him in chat. No, not every player will get a car. I was using that for say an MVP award in the championship game. But smaller things like these guys see all this money coming in, and in this day and age, they want a piece of it. They want a cut of it. So I'm just trying to say, instead of it just being money that's going to the bowl committee and that's it, they need to find a way to make it worthwhile for these kids to truly want to play, because there's one thing to play, and then there's another thing to play with everything you got.
I've got, I want to answer this outright. Moen had mentioned they should be employees required to show up to games. That's one mindset. Mine's a little different. I don't care about them being employees or not. I think the NILs pretty much run it anyway. In my opinion, they should, in my opinion, for a bowl, players should get a flat fee. I said 5,000. I proposed that on Twitter. These bowl games are making tens of millions of dollars. I can't
Mhm.
see how they couldn't fork out a couple million to pay players. Wouldn't even be that much. I didn't do the math, but like $500,000 actually. So that's one idea that I would do. And the other thing I would do is I would have the NILs also put in their contract, similar to an employment contract, a requirement. You get a bonus, not your standard NIL, but on top of that, you might get an additional 5% or something, depending on the value, to also attend and play in a bowl.
Mhm.
That could be incentivized again through the NIL. So, in my opinion, I think a lot of this stuff can be handled on the outside. The bowls could pay the players, the NILs could pay the players. At the end of the day, pay the players. That's my opinion. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's
go
gonna
ahead.
have to be worked into it some way or another. I know folks are
Right.
saying how many of this, how many of that. None of us here are going to be determining any of that. But just the idea is that you have to start to get these players to want to do it. For whatever reason, no one's stepping up to say you signed this contract, you got to be part of it, and that's fine. I don't really care either way. But they need to find some way to get these kids starting to want to play in those games and to actually play hard in those games. Um, what that amount comes to, that's someone else's job to figure out. But to me, we're in about a 5-year period, a stage where this is going to continue to erode and degrade. Um, at some point in time, you might see people saying, "Well, why am I playing in these, you know, games in the regular season that don't matter?" Like, say if with conference championships or if we get to conference playoffs, why would someone play in an out of conference game? You know, what's next? So if we're going to go to a pay to player in order to make them want to play, then you need to start doing it. Like just do it then. Like get some money in their hands and get them to actually want to show up, because like the
Right.
FSU game, and there's some other examples that it's just that's just kind of unacceptable. That those aren't the teams that earn those spots, and people are expecting to see those teams, and they're getting a different product, and you're making people pay for tickets to those games. It just doesn't work.
And everybody needs to understand the bowls have changed. 30
Mhm.
years ago, to be in a bowl game, it was a bit of a pageant. Every one of these bowls had a parade. They had the mayonnaise king, and I mean, whatever the sponsors were, they did things, and they were I would say core to their different areas, like the New Mexico Bowl. Who wants to go to El Paso? Nobody. But they want to drive people down there for a little bit of money to add to their tourism budget. So they put on a bowl game. So it has changed. Now bowls are tended to be looked at as either a reward or a drag. And if you're an NFL player and your team isn't in the playoffs, I'm saying this from my I would forego $50,000. Cleveland Rock says $5,000 is chump change. You're right, it is. I just came up with a random
Yeah.
number. $50,000 might be chump change if I felt like I might go in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. So I don't know how they fix that. I don't know if they make it so you can declare for the draft but come back if you don't get drafted. I don't know what they can do, but they need to start thinking out of the box.
My thoughts on the tournament idea is that the teams that make it to the final game make considerably more than those that don't.
The
Like,
teams, but not the players.
well, the players, the team. Like, I'm just talking about paying players at this point, not
Oh, okay.
like the payouts and everything. The schools, I don't really care about that. They can figure out their own damn business. But in terms of the players, I don't think just paying everyone just the same amount to do it really gives an enticement. Like, it's just kind of, I don't know. I would want to make it to where if you want the big payout, you got to win. Like, you have to win that first game, and you got to go to the next game and get the big payout. Like, have some amount for being in the first one. Sure. Like, that's probably going to be necessary, but make whatever it is that they can win in that final game worthwhile.
Well, aren't the players worth more in NIL appearance fees and everything else? If they're worth more, the more they win,
I
right?
would think so.
So I think
Yeah.
it's in their best interest to stay involved and
Yep.
stay
It
playing.
doesn't seem to. I mean, but part of it though is when guys transfer, to another school. That's taking them
Right.
off of these teams.
But they're transferring from Georgia to Alabama to
Yeah,
Ohio State.
But there's no loss. There's no loss
No,
to
of
doing
course
that.
not.
But
the
if these
players getting ahead
bowls,
either way.
yeah, but if these bowls were to do these type of payouts directly to players for winning stuff, now you start to think maybe I don't want to transfer right now. Because there are later dates you can transfer.
That's a different conversation. We'll get to that.
It's about the bowls, though. I mean, it's still
it
about.
is. It's all tied up into it.
Yeah, it's about the bowls and getting guys to stick around. Yeah, there's two different things: NIL and transfer portal.
We will break that down in another show where we actually talk NIL, transfer portal, and bowl season. That's a whole different day. Brandon Unruh has a statement here, Mo, and I want you to address, if you don't mind. NIL should be a supplement to contracts, just like endorsements are to the NFL players. There should be an NCAA standardized salary and benefit package. My question to you is the NCAA the right entity to negotiate something like that, enforce it?
No, because everybody has different athletic budgets they have to deal with. It wouldn't be right for the NCAA to ask a Big 12 school that's not making very much revenue in the athletic side to pay the same thing that an Ohio State is paying when they're making much more money on their athletic revenue side. I think the best alternative is to just let conferences manage their own budget, conference employees, let the conferences decide what they're choosing to pay moving forward.
Here's another one, and this is to either of you. Scott White was answering his own question earlier, I think. He says, he's talking about the players to get paid, agree to sign a contract, pay half through the season, and then a balloon payment after the bowl game or whatever. So it's similar to a hitman, you're saying? You pay a player like they're a hitman.
Kind of.
They get half money now and half money when the job is done. Is that kind of what we're saying here?
It's a bit mercenary, but it might work.
Moen? What do you think?
I've never hired a hitman. I'm just going to have to take your word for it.
I've watched enough Godfather movies to know that's how it works. Let's see here. Let's get to more of these. Michigan wants the Blockbuster Bowl back. Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Let's see. Kenneth Evans reminds everybody El Paso is a beautiful town. I don't remember talking bad about El Paso. I just said it would. They were driving people there with a bowl game. Let's see. Scott White says NFL player in meaningless games out of playoffs because they're in contract and get paid. I mean, that's true, but they're quote unquote professional players, right? They are different. So anyway,
let's change that and make college players actual employees.
There we go.
And as you said earlier, the NFL players, their own personal value goes up based upon playing those games more so than in regular season. Yeah. So you were right on with using maybe performance in bowl games, whether it be a tournament or not, have that improve their payout maybe for next year or something like that.
Agreed. I think incentive bonuses pay huge dividends.
That makes a lot of sense.
The bowl trip, to be honest, 30 years ago, the bowl trip was the incentivized bonus for these players. They were traveling to the Hula Bowl. They were going to the Rose Bowl. They were going to New Orleans and the Sugar Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
and they got gift bags and stuff. But I mean, we're talking small time compared to what people want nowadays. But yeah, I mean, it worked off of this premise.
Right.
Like you got incentivized to go.
But the premise is broken with NIL now.
Yes.
Now you have players driving up in Maseratis and playing football at the same time. It's just crazy times. The Rock and Roll Pepper Show. I love the name. Good to have you here. Make sure you subscribe. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and follow us all on Twitter so you can keep up with the latest news, and then turn on your notifications so you know when we're on. He says, if you want to have any NIL compensation or play pro football, you need to finish your year entirely with the team that you're on, period. That is a question. We had several players in different games, even though they had declared to the portal, they still played for their teams. The quarterback at Utah did that. 2 weeks before, he declared for the portal or whatever, and yet he played the whole game, almost the whole game. How does that work?
I don't
The
know.
pig farmer guy. I can't
That-
recall his name.
kinda thought
Bryson
it-
Barnes.
Yes, Barnes. That's
'Cause
right.
I thought if you entered the portal, you were effectively off the team.
No,
like,
he
immediately.
played. He had
Did they
declared
make that
previous
this year
week.
to where you can go back now? Because
I
if you
have no
can,
idea. I didn't know you could do it.
Hmm.
Somebody needs to ask that question. Somebody in chat who has time, type on Google and try to find out and give us an answer in the comment section. Why were declared transfer portal athletes still able to play in their bowl games? I would like to know that. I just gotta say this. I know you guys want to talk about it too. The idea that the transfer portal comes in this critical time of everything else, just so we can get it done before admissions in January, in my opinion, is the most broken idea that you could hope for. This whole system was created by their rule system. Why not just have the one window in the spring?
They could. I don't know how. It probably works best if they can do it and then enroll right away, because you have to be enrolled to play.
Right. And that
but-
gives them time. That gives them spring practices to decide if they want to leave.
Mhm.
They transfer. They're able to get in and they play in the fall.
Yeah, but they're still in courses at the previous school, but they've already declared to leave that school. I'm sure that probably gets a little dicey, a little.
They're
'cause
already doing it. So I don't know how they make it work.
I
but
know,
There's
I
already
know.
one window.
I'm saying the whole university aspect just really makes it messy.
It does.
I mean, it could be a lot easier if it wasn't, but that's an aspect that's not changing. So I don't really have a good solution for that, and I don't know if they'll ever come up with one.
Well, what do you think about just eliminating the other window and just having the spring window?
The problem is you're still going to have people sit out. People that are worried about landing a new NIL deal at their next destination.
But why is that college football's issue? Why isn't that just a player's choice issue?
That is a player's choice issue, but that's what I'm saying. Moving that portal date, you're still going to have the issue of kids jumping in the portal. You're just going to have kids sitting out and waiting to jump in the portal.
Okay. I don't
like if you're a
disagree with
star at a small, like say Cam Ward actually did decide to go somewhere this year,
Right.
he wouldn't have played in a bowl game.
Right. No, you're right. He wouldn't have.
He would have just sat out and said, "Well, I'm jumping in the
That's right.
portal in the spring. I'm not
Right.
playing."
I just don't. I personally don't understand. The early signing window is already there for high school athletes in January. I do not know why you need two transfer portal windows. In my opinion, they should get rid of the one in in December, and just go to the one in April, May, whenever that one is. Anyway, that's my opinion. I do have ideas on how to fix this whole system, but tonight's not the time because Mo and Immaculate have theirs as well, and I want to bring Ute in on it at some point. So we're going to talk about that later. Here's a good comment from Summit Hawk. He says, get paid 75 funds for entire season, 25%, I guess is what he's saying, percentages of remaining balance if they play in the first bowl game, and bonuses if you make another bowl game. Now, he's looking at your idea there, Immaculate.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about paying these guys like they're professionals.
Right.
Once these guys, if they need to understand, I mean, there's some talk from them that they want to be employees. I don't know if they necessarily mean everything that's going to come with that, or if they just think, oh, it means we get paid. Hell yeah, I want to be an employee. You're going to give up some rights as well when you do that. And one of those is going to be, you're going to have to sign a contract. And there are consequences to breaking contracts. So they should be aware of that.
Tony Huey has a good comment. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and I know we're going to get some comments about, well, what about Florida State? Want to break their contract with the ACC? They're going to have to pay consequences for that. Whatever price, whatever exit, any of that stuff. Same thing. These players, if you break a contract, you're going to probably be penalized, or you're not going to get paid, or something like that.
Make them pay it back.
Something. There needs to be a penalty. Right now, there's nothing. Tony Huey says you can always go back and are still on the team. So that answers the question about the portal. But he also says the team can revoke your scholarship.
That's probably what's happened, because they'll turn around and give that to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, not always, depending on the player. But yeah, that's interesting. Cleveland, you know what's interesting about the one at Utah? Barnes, he had just gotten his scholarship. This last year, they just gave him his scholarship. He was a walk-on, and he ends up transferring out. It's just crazy.
Kid
Cleveland,
wants a chance.
yeah, he does. Yeah, I'm not sure where he's going to go. Cleveland Rock, maybe Utah State. Cleveland Rock says, please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. We ask everybody to do that. These shows are kind of tiring to do, so everything you can do for us, subscribe, become paying members, and hitting the like button, all those things help us. All right, let's see here. Scott White said, if you sit out, should just sit out for 5 or 6 games, or when you think you don't need to showcase your talents anymore. If injury is concerned, I don't like players sitting out. So this brings up a question I brought up last night. If I'm a player, I don't want to play, I'll just why wouldn't you just fake an injury?
I think I had this conversation somewhere. These schools have very good medical staffs, very good work in that. They're going to know, and you will have to get looked at by a doctor. Just faking a medical injury when very highly qualified medical personnel can look you over with, high-tech machinery, you're not going to pull it off. And then at that point in time, you've probably actually broken something on your contract if they become employees. Faking an injury would actually probably be a very bad thing to try and do in that case.
We have a good question here from Antoine Codes, who's one of our members. He says, if players become employees, wouldn't that limit their transfer options?
Yes.
If it's in their contract, yeah.
And how would that be affected?
Well, it depends on how you word the contract, but under conference employees, they get one transfer and they have to transfer within the conference.
And if you're going to transfer out of it, then you're probably looking at having to get a trade. This conference trades this guy for that guy, and then it's goofy and quirky, but
goofy.
if
or you
this
pay
is
back
this is
all
what you're
the money you
talking about.
receive.
Once these guys got to realize that once you become an employee, if unless it's particular in the thing that there's no trading or anything like that. That would seem weird if they went that far because this is still students. But there's going to be a lot of boxes opened up if these guys become employees. I hope they realize that it could get messy.
Summit Hawk says options 1, 2, or 3-year deals and different penalties for when you leave. I think all ideas are on the table. Here's one from Uncle Filthy. Love the name, Uncle Filthy. That's fantastic. When you enter the portal or declare, you are not off the team until you sign somewhere or enroll. Nothing stops anyone from playing other than by choice or the coach saying no. So in Bryson Barr's case, the coach loved him and gave him the opportunity to play even though he was leaving, and pissed off every living Ute fan that I have ever met.
Oh, really?
Oh, I just got to ask one question to Phil, and I guarantee you he goes off. It was
about letting them play.
If there's any Utah fans in chat, and I don't think we have a ton without Ute here, if we have one, jump on and explain to us how you felt when you saw Bryson Barnes suit up and play in the third quarter. That's all I want to know, because they were not happy on Twitter. Let's see here. OPD Don says, well, they fake injuries in the game. Yeah, but that in most cases that helps the team in some way.
Yeah,
stops the clock or something like that.
I don't think they're trying to actually be like, I don't want to play for you anymore. I'm faking my injury.
Right. Tony Lawson, good to see you here, Tony. Happy night to you. OP, you got that right. So he agrees with the fake comment by OPD Don. That's fantastic. Mr. Monkey says, better not have any penalties in soccer NIL for faking injuries. Hey, man, they use magic spray. There are no injuries in soccer.
Pop right up. You're okay.
There's a spray that fixes everything. Kenneth Evans, when did we get to the point when a student athlete has transitioned to an employee? And let's put a time horizon on that. So let's get
he said when
guesses.
Like, are you saying when do we get there, or he's saying it sounds like he thinks we're already there?
okay, between the three of us, when do we think players will be employees? Let's put it that way.
I think we're going to find out this year how that's going to play out. So I think sometime between now and 2026.
Moen?
Yeah, as soon as they're legally obligated to. The colleges and the conferences aren't going to pay until they're legally obligated to.
I don't think they're ever going to be employees. So I'm different than my two masters of information. So this is one thing that I just disagree. I think it'll be a new classification, but I don't think they'll ever be employees. Employee is a loaded word for me. In my work history, it involves different levels of healthcare. It involves different levels of pay, and they're treated differently. Once you're an employee, you have rights.
Yep.
And if college ever comes to the point where players are employees, I'm not sure where it goes.
But you can also be
after that
fired.
day. And that's okay. So
I'm just saying, like,
you're saying you're making my argument for me. I just think it's too complex.
I don't think that these student athletes understand how complex it'll be.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. Absolutely.
And that's why I kind of think maybe Moen's right that they don't actually take that down to the school level, because then you're an employee for the school. Whereas
even the conference level, though, an employee is an employee.
Yeah, but then you're not an employee for like a state-funded institution.
Right. Man,
there's a difference.
That's walking a narrow.
Yeah,
very
that's why
narrow
I've
line.
talked in the past about how there might be a private university conference because they could have different rules in that regard. Anyways, I don't want to go there yet, but it starts to come down to, and we're not talking about just necessarily employees. There's such things as contracted employees, and
Sure.
you're an independent contractor,
right?
So you get a lot less benefits that way. You might get less benefits than you have now as a student athlete.
How about Terry Kane, who says just make every game pay for play? That's what we're doing now anyway. You don't play, we don't pay.
I mean,
that's what a contract's for.
That's what NFL contracts actually do. You get paid per game.
Scott White says being an employee is better than not getting paid at all, like the last 100 years before NIL, and the majority of players don't get NIL.
Correct.
Well, that's true, Scott. The majority of players don't get a lot of NIL money. I would say that you can't equate what's happened in the last 125 years and roll it all up and take that history and then move on to the next 125 years. I think you have to cut it off, stop it, and start new. That's my opinion. If you try to bring all the weight of the last 125, 135 years and roll it up and include that history with what is going on in the later, I don't know how you could separate it enough to make it work. That's just my opinion.
I don't think any of us are saying that they shouldn't get paid. We're just saying be careful for unintended consequences of what you do in trying to do that, because things that you don't plan for can happen to you. And if you think that the lawyers and legal teams who are going to write up these employee contracts for the schools or conferences or whatever, if you think that they don't know exactly how to do this and work this out in their favor, you'd be wrong. So if it's going to happen, it's going to get ugly before it gets, perfect, so to speak. So is being an employee the best way to get money in their hands? I'm not sure.
And I like the independent contractor model. They still get benefits, right? You still can get health care and other things, but the separation is a lot different.
Yeah, I think that's how it would go if they go with the conference employee schedule. Like they would be independent contractors of the conference while being student athletes of the school.
It's quite possible. It's quite possible. Summit Hawk says you'll never walk alone. If you don't know what that is, I have it right behind me. That's a Liverpool saying, and it is true. You will never walk alone. If you're part of Big 12 Mafia family, you're definitely not alone. I'm going to do one last bump. Please follow us all on Twitter and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss the next show. Let's get to a few more comments here as we're winding down. Cleveland Rock says, is basketball and football going to be treated differently if players become employees? The easy answer to that is most likely. football and basketball will be split off
Mm.
and treated differently.
Yeah. Basketball will too, because there's a lot less players there. In fact,
Right.
basketball players on average might actually get paid more than the football players.
Oh, I
If you
think
have-
they will for
If
sure.
you have 12 players on a team versus 80
Yeah.
some, I mean, it's some of those guys are going to get paid a lot.
Absolutely. Mo, when you want to say anything to that?
Yeah, that's not even including the NIL on top of it, though. Some of those star basketball players are going to be, making more off of NIL than any employment agreement they have. They'll
The one and done would be done. Like a lot of them will just stick around in college for a while instead of going up to the pros.
right with the NIL deals will
Oh
be
yeah,
much better than going to the G League for some of them.
that's what most of it happens.
I think that's where Brett Yormark's forward thinking about basketball makes a big difference. You guys just
Fair point.
delineated it. Basketball is different, and they are going to get paid more money, and I think they're going to get a lot more attention. I think we're going to get to a point where regular, like BYU plays TCU this weekend. TCU? Oops.
I don't know.
Now I've forgotten who they play. I apologize. Their first Big 12 game. No, Cincinnati. They play Cincinnati and Provo. I'm going to guess that in 5 or 10 years, if Yormark has his way, that game could draw 1.5 million people. That's how much he's going to market those games. It's going to be crazy, the level he's going to boost basketball marketing.
Well, look at the situation with Penix, and he's how old, and he's still around playing. Imagine that in basketball now. If you got guys that are around for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they become just absolute stars, and they're getting paid, and they're, do you need to leave? I mean,
that's a good question.
And do you, when the NBA time comes, I mean, there's only so many spots on the NBA team. So, anyways, that's getting up from the weeds. But yeah, I think, like to your point, this whole situation going forward could actually make basketball more valuable than it's been in the past, for sure.
EJWTX64, nice to have you here. That must have been your first computer automatic name, I'm gonna guess. I don't know. You guys have an idea? Have any guesses about his name? It looks to
His
me
initials are EJW. He's from Texas, and he was born in 1964.
Okay, there's
Nicely
another one.
done.
What do you think?
I'm gonna go with what he said.
Oh, you guys are both lazy. All right. If athletes become employees, Title IX will not apply, and colleges may not support non-revenue sports. So that gets into the weeds a little bit, but basically the reason you'd spin off basketball and football and treat them differently is so that they don't have the Title IX obligations that currently exist in the format we're running right now.
Mm-hmm. He's
so
right. They're right.
That doesn't mean that the federal government can amend Title IX though, and go in and do something that will reward those other people. That could happen.
Or if you become a conference employee, it becomes moot anyway, because that only applies to places that receive federal funding. Conferences do not receive federal funding.
If you're a school, you couldn't make that work because everything, unless they don't take any federal funding at all,
Right.
no Pell Grants, no nothing,
Yep.
then they would be exempt. Other than that, even a private institution has to hold to Title IX. So it doesn't matter what conference you're in, Title IX exists unless they do something and break those two sports away. That's basically it.
Yep. But if
great comment or question though, EJ. Really appreciate it. KU plays TCU this weekend. That's going to be a fantastic game. Here's one from Tony Lawson. Scholarships cost a pretty penny. Hard to say they haven't been getting paid. I mean, it's $80K a year to go to Northwestern. Okay, it's true. Education has gone up. It's very expensive. Even at BYU, the numbers are starting to get up there a little bit, and it's crazy to afford to go to some of these schools. Northwestern, Stanford is over $100,000 for tuition. So to get a scholarship or to go to some of those places, it is a trade. But at the same time, these schools are making hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's not going to the rest of the organization to start. They can send it wherever they want to. So to say the players should only be compensated with their education, it's not really it's apples and oranges, because a degree at Stanford is definitely worth more than a degree at another school I'm not going to name because I don't want to call anybody out. mean, that's a fact.
Yep.
So, anyways, they're just not equal. You have anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that these guys are not going to be making millions off of a conference employee status. At
There you
best,
go.
I think they could make 20, 30,000 a year.
There's going to be a lot that make even less than that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're allowing yourself to be valued when we go to this point. Everything up until now has been, fair all out to everybody for the most part. NIL changes that. But if these guys become employees, there's guys on the team that are going to be paid very little compared to other guys that are getting paid a lot. And that's what's going to come down to, because they're not going to care if you leave is so much. Say you're the guy getting paid low, you're replaceable. But the stars, they're going to want to stay, and someone else is going to be willing to pay a whole lot more to get them. So this basically, I mean, it becomes NFL light at that point in time.
Sergeant Pickles has a good statement here. Give guys two options: paid employee with a contract, or real student athlete with all the education benefits. You can go from student to employee, but not back. That seems pretty restrictive, Pickles. I don't know. Put it this way: if I'm a player, I'm a star quarterback. I'm Michael Penix, and I have a year of college. I could still play. First question I'm looking at is, where am I going to go in the draft? If I'm number 1, I'm leaving no matter what. If I'm number 10 quarterback, I probably reconsider and stay in college another year. But your value is going to be worth a lot more in NIL than pretty much any of your peers. There's no way the players are going to let, without a fight, NIL just disappear. And NILs they're going to fight for their own standing too. So there could be a lot of legal fights around NIL and changes, player status and getting paid and all these things. NIL has been the big complicating factor in all that.
Just real quick on that. In order to do anything with employee status for these kids, it's going to require some kind of law change. And so what you're doing with that is you're asking representatives, elected officials to say, it's okay, these kids, we don't want these kids to get any kind of education. I mean, the whole point of the NCAA when it was made was to preserve that, to preserve the educational side of this. So I don't know how politically correct, for lack of better terms, it would be for any of these representative senators, whoever, to write up anything that allows these kids to come there and do that and not get an education. I think they see themselves as protecting these kids from that choice, because while it might seem early on like that's a good choice, for a lot of these kids to come in there thinking that they're going to the league and then they don't, well, what if they were only playing for pay and they can just get fired? If they make that choice and they go down that route, one might argue that bad life choice. So I don't know if you're going to get any type of laws written that would allow for those kids, in my opinion, to be abused like that.
This just jumped in my head, and you guys tell me if it's a stupid idea, but I just had an epiphany here, and we could talk about it. But why don't schools offer players position, access to the training, everything else, but to get the actual education, to get the top-notch education, that's actually something you have to earn. So put it in reverse. Give them the upfront money if that's what they want, but they don't necessarily get access to all the educational tools. And make it like the one-and-done situation with basketball. I mean, they're telling those kids to take basket weaving, just do the minimal just to stay valid for 2 semesters, and then you're gone. Why not offer the same thing to football players?
I mean,
like, make it a bonus, something you earn, rather than the reverse. That's a given, and then everything else is on top of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of these guys that are going in there who actually strive and excel on the educational side. In terms of providing these opportunities for other guys, I don't know. To me, I think it's a tough sell in any way to get a law written that has kids come in to play sports on a university and not partaking in the educational side of it. It's tough sell. I don't know.
Moen?
Yeah, I don't think that works at all. Going back to your example of a Northwestern player, if you get into Northwestern, you're getting in because you have excellent academics. It's not just, based on athletic ability. So you can't offer a kid who gets into Northwestern a less than Northwestern education. They deserve to have the best education possible.
And I completely agree with that. Summon Hawk says if basketball tournament breaks off and one and done goes away, which is what we're kind of talking about, big money coming from networks. I can see that. I'm starting to see a little bit peering through the fog about what Yormark's bigger plan may be. I'm not saying realignment's based on basketball. I'm not jumping the shark or anything like that. But I do see an avenue where basketball becomes, I don't know. I'm liking this vision that I'm seeing in my head. Now, you guys have any comments on that?
No.
Okay.
If basketball breaks off, and I think what he's talking about is, to not have the tournament at the end, the NCAA goes broke. Plain
Without
simple.
the NCAA basketball tournament.
They're broke. It's done. It's over.
Right.
So that's probably not going to happen unless the NCAA is being gotten rid of. If they're not getting rid of the NCAA, it means they want it around, which means it has to be funded, which means they can't pull out of that. So we'll see. I do not know what direction they're going. I really wish I did. I think a lot of people do, and I think we're going to find out this year. But yeah, it's a good question. I think that basketball is going to become a bigger thing, but I don't necessarily think that tournament's going away. We'll see.
Moen, you have any thoughts on the basketball comment again?
Nope.
All right. Well, I think we've made it through all of our super chats. We've made it through most of our live comments. This has been a very lively show. We appreciate everybody being here. It's midweek, so we sort of make it up as we go. But we appreciate everybody that was here with us tonight. Let's do some final comments. Immaculate, is there anything you want to sign off about? Get people thinking in their mind about this idea of refashioning the bowls.
Yeah, we've got two ideas out there, I think, that have kind of dominated the space. One is bowls continue as they are. They're fine. Enough people are watching. We don't need to do anything about it. And then there's the people who want to drastically change it and turn them into an entirely other one single big tournament. I would say I think both ideas have some pretty big faults. And so I'd look to folks, try to come up with some hybrid ideas of how to put together something that maybe meets in the middle. Because I do think the way things are going right now, unless, big changes come from the NCAA, these bowl situations are going to start to deteriorate because the best teams are now going to be taken up into the tournament. So just kind of think a little bit out of the box. We'll put something out to you guys today in terms of little bowl alliances. Some of those could be small little regional setups. But how does it work so that way in the future this keeps going? And maybe some people don't think anything has to happen, but I think all of us personally think that something does have to happen.
I missed a super chat earlier or not super chat, but a chat that I wanted to give recognition to. You've probably left, Doug EP. I'm sorry. I got past, honestly. There was some other stuff going on. I lost you in my timeline, but he says at Big 12 Mafia Network, hey, my man, I love the channel. Today is my wife and her boyfriend's anniversary. Can I get a shout out? Dougie, shout out to you. You're living the good life, brother.
Shout out to you and your wife's boyfriend.
Moen, is he your next door neighbor, maybe?
No, I don't live next to any swingers, so
okay, all right.
I've checked.
Dougie, I love you
Just
being
swinging.
here. Thank you so much, and I apologize if I missed you. And you're gone now. I rats. That's just something I missed, but I appreciate you being here. That was really awesome. Let's see here, Moen. Any last words?
Yeah, it's past Christmas season. Can we stop with the car commercials on TV? For the love of God.
You're really hung up on those.
Nobody gets a car for Christmas. I don't need to see the little kid bury the car in the snow and the Lexus sign and drive event.
Unless it becomes an MVP prize.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
well, that's true. See, that's how you could
Gator.
tie it in there.
Tie it
Lexus
in.
Sign and Drive Bowl.
That's what I'm saying. The Lexus Bowl and the MVP gets a brand new Lexus sports car.
Here's a late chat by Cheek Clapping Troll Grinder. Gonna love this. Wanted to mention UCLA and the Rose Bowl are further away than Miami is from its stadium. Also, Rose Bowl is dilapidated, $41 towards the plumbing and tunnels. USC spent $300 on renovations and in comparison. Okay, nobody's saying the Rose Bowl doesn't need to be renovated. It's the location. It's the way it's
The
set up,
history.
the architecture, everything about it. So,
I
yeah, it'll
think-
cost money, but it's worth billions.
Yeah. I think what he's saying, though, is right, too. Like the whole idea that UCLA itself is tied to that bowl when it is quite a distance away. I mean, I talked bad about Miami in that regard. I talked bad about Pitt. I mean, it's kind of the same situation for UCLA, but in terms of it being a bowl game, a postseason thing, it is a special stadium. So hopefully they keep the look of it after they renovate it. But yeah, I don't know how it and UCLA need to be in the future.
Well, who knows? Maybe UCLA's getting this new money. Maybe they'll build their own stadium somewhere. I don't know. Let's see here. Is there any more? Oh, he says millions. I realized you were talking about millions of dollars, not $5. Sorry, I didn't clear that up. $300 was not going to renovate anything. All right, guys. So my final words are: thanks for being here. We appreciate everybody watching. It's been a Wednesday show, as always. Be on the lookout. I'm not quite keep your head on a swivel like Greg is, but definitely be paying attention to our Twitter feeds, because when news pops, we drop, and we'll be putting shows together immediately. There are some rumblings, and I can't spell any. I'm just going to tell you the FSU and the ACC, there's stuff bubbling. And I know Greg's intimated a little bit. I haven't had a chance to talk to him to circle back, but I have heard from multiple sources there are things out there happening.
Yep.
As direct as I can get.
If it's true that Clemson is pushing hard right now and they're pushing forward,
I think it's too late.
I think that means that there is already a settlement being worked on between Florida State and the ACC, and they need to get ahead of this, because if that thing comes out small, they're going to have some company. Other schools will be looking to leave.
On the flip side, if it's $200 or $300 million, FSU might be the only one.
Clemson might get in with them to the Big Ten.
And everybody
if
that's
it's a lot.
hoping Clemson goes to the Big Ten, keep your fingers crossed, because I still see that as a long shot.
I would say if that's your goal, then hope that exit fee is high, because then Clemson has a pretty good shot. If it's lower,
and I would. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying if it's lower, then more schools are going to be able to pay that to get out.
Yeah, the ACC will disappear if it's lower. Miami and Clemson right now, in my opinion, are fighting for one spot in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And it's only going to go to one of them. And Clemson's late to the table. Miami got out first. Greg talked about it last Wednesday. I was on that show. And now we're hearing rumbles about Clemson. They're a week late and $1 short. Are they better than, in my opinion, if I'm the Big, I take Clemson over Miami. I don't see two schools in Florida, but I do understand the allure to the Miami brand. So Clemson's a neophyte. You know, yeah, they've 3 national championships. I think it's 3, but they're not a blue blood. So
I think they're both fighting for it. I don't necessarily know if it's guaranteed to be one of theirs and no one else. Like I said, if it comes out where it's like $50 to $100 million, some other schools might be like, oh, we can do that. Hey, Big Ten, what do you think about us? Or, I think it opens the door right now, the way things stand. Yeah, I think other schools are like, well, we're not looking at anything right now. So it probably is Clemson versus Miami, but that could change.
Tempest, I do know Miami has 5. I just didn't say it. Summit Hawk, FSU and Miami are done deal, in my honest opinion. Again, that's what's been reported up to this second, and then just this afternoon, and I started hearing that stuff about Clemson. Clemson's wanted in forever. But if they were that far ahead of this thing, why weren't they out the door when FSU decided to throw down the gauntlet? Yep. I just don't see it. I think FSU and maybe Miami are the only 2 schools that have destinations set.
Well, let's be honest here. Miami hasn't actually declared to leave either.
I know that, again, another reason.
So let's
I
not
just,
assume their spot is 100%. Although I think it's probably high 80s that
but we
Miami
had
is the travel
high
partner.
80s about the Big Ten during the summer, and that didn't happen either. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy right now for sure. Anyways, I was just reminding everybody, this is what we do. Go ahead.
To me, right now, it's very short term. It's what settlement or judgment happens with FSU, and once we see that, then then I think we can determine a little bit better. Until then, it's a one school show. Everyone else is talking big, but there's no actual actions to follow it up right now.
Kenneth Evans says Clemson was supposed to make their announcement at the end of January, beginning of February. So let's talk about that a little bit. There was some rumblings that Clemson would do something in the first quarter, this time end of January, early February, kind of fit and aligned with that. The problem with that was they didn't do any coordination with FSU, and the first school out might be the only one that gets the offer. So if they had gone together and filed together, it would have been different. So whether that's just a simple miscommunication or it's a different messaging, right now Florida State is way the front runner, like 98%, right?
Yeah.
And Clemson and Miami are like 10, 11 fighting for attention.
When this comment was made by Greg, he was talking about both Florida and Clemson. He was talking in general, like we might see something happen in January, February. Florida State jumped that. They went forward on their own. And I would think that they were all in contact before that. So I think there's a lot more power to it if they all come out together, and they didn't. So to me, that was a pretty clear signal that only Florida State had if you're out on your own, if you get out on your own, we'll give you the nod. We're not telling them in any official way. But the fact that no one else jumped up there with them, I don't think that they've got any type of similar assurance.
And Kenneth, just to be clear, he was repeating what Greg reported. So, and we knew that.
That's what looked familiar.
Yep. Yeah. And definitely we give credit where credit's due. We're not breaking that ourselves. And this news that I'm talking about, I don't break news. I only repeat what smarter people than me do breaking, but there are people that know things. There are things moving in that area. Whatever happens is cheap clapping again. Whatever happens, get Notre Dame joining the big sooner rather than later. I'd prefer, although I'm not really concerned if they join as much as USC would give up its rivalry. Would give up its rivalry with UCLA before Notre Dame. I know it's kind of a running commentary there. Do you guys have any comments on that?
Yeah, that's got to remember the end game for all of this is always Notre Dame to the Big Ten.
There we go. Big Lubbock says SEC is going after Clemson and UNC only. I'm glad you know that, Lubbock. I appreciate you being a member, man. A lot.
I could see them wanting that. I mean, that's a good starting position in a negotiation.
Yeah. Let's see. I definitely don't break the news. I just bitch about it. Okay. Well, that'll wrap us up for tonight. Thank you for being here. Our next show, maybe tomorrow night, maybe Friday night. Who knows? But we appreciate everybody's following and viewing. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not ready to sign off. You guys ready to go?
We're good.
All right. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Peace out.